Afternoon, everyone. My name is Neil McKechnie. I am an associate with the Coalition of Care and Support Providers in Scotland, or we're more commonly known as CCPS. CCPS are a membership organisation. Our members are social care charities that work in Scotland, and they cover the whole of the social care market. So our members work in adult services, children and family services. They support unpaid carers. They work with homelessness individuals and run homelessness services. They operate drug and alcohol and addiction services, mental health services, and also support unpaid carers. So it's a huge cross section of social care that we represent through our membership organisation. Cumulatively, our members support over 200,000 people, and the joint annual income of our members was around £1 billion last year, of which the majority of their funding related to publicly funded service provisions. And our members come in all shapes and sizes. We have some members who turn over up to £1 million, whereas we have others that turn over 60 million and employ over 2,000 staff. A few years ago, the Scottish Government commissioned the independent review of adult social care, and that work was undertaken by Derek Feely and is also known as the Feely Report or the Feely Review. Derek Feely and his team consulted extensively with a number of individuals with lived experience, unpaid carers, local communities. They consulted with local authorities and other key stakeholders, including CCPS. And we were delighted to read that our recommendations that we made on commissioning and procurement within social care were included within the report at recommendation 32 and 33. And just at this time, I'll just explain what we mean by commissioning within a social care context. So commissioning is the planning of social care resources, and obviously procurement is the buying of it. We've always felt that traditional price-based competitive tendering simply doesn't work in social care, because you can't purchase outcomes for people using the most economically advantageous evaluation criteria, nor can you buy them for the cheapest price. So we have ran a commissioning procurement programme for a number of years, and we're delighted that our recommendations made their way into the report, which can be seen as recommendation 32 and 33 on your screen. As I alluded to, CCPS have for a number of years looked at commission procurement within social care, and we can see that it's unsustainable. It surrounds and covers, it's price-based, time and task related, and doesn't always focus on outcomes, whereas it tends to focus on outputs. And our message is very much to shift that away to have more of a focus on outcomes for people. So therefore, as part of our work plan for last year, we wanted to set up a workshop on and do several strands to this in a fairly intensive way. But rather than CCPS write some resources, we felt it would be a good idea to go out to our members and to our local authority partners in their commissioning teams and invite them to apply to be on our collaborative commissioning workshop. We were really surprised by the high number of applicants that we got, which really just showed us that there was such an appetite for change. We always wanted a small group, a small balanced group, which is what we got. So we had 6 providers and 6 commissioners, and these workshops, a series of workshops, were expertly facilitated by Graham Reekie of The Lasting Difference. But because of the number of applicants that we had, we were able to set up a reference group which consisted of carers organisations, disabled people's organisations. We had COSLA, Scottish Government representatives, who all acted as a critical friend in relation to the resources that we were aiming to produce. We also co-opted in Robin Fallis of McRoberts, because the rules and regulations around procurement can be very technical, and we thought it'd be really great to have a legal perspective as well, but something written in plain English that we could use as a resource. So to start off, we wanted the group to define and explain, well, what do we mean by collaborative commissioning? So the group, as a collective, came up with the following. So collaborative commissioning involves working together as equals to plan, design and provide social care services which are easy to access, give choice and meaningfully involve people in understanding the outcomes they want to achieve to have a good life. This was really important to do at the beginning, because it then informed lots of the other work that we were doing, particularly when looking at, well, what are the alternatives to the traditional methods of procurement? So the group looked at various different options, which are all up on your screen just now, but I'll go through a couple of them just now. So some of them include long-term, open, flexible frameworks and outcomes-based contracting and monitoring. We felt these were really important to go over. Traditionally, social care contracts are 3-year frameworks with 2 one-year extensions, and this can be quite disruptive, not just for the providers, but it can be incredibly disruptive for those who are receiving services, as potentially their providers might change. Whereas if you have longer term contracts, so somewhere in the region of 7 to 10 years, what you find is there are greater emphasis on outcomes. There's more likelihood to gain investment to develop services and evolve services according to need and demand. And importantly, you create better outcomes for people. And if you create better outcomes for people, you are more likely to reduce the chances of that individual requiring more intensive support, or perhaps entering the healthcare system, which we all know in recent times is under significant pressure. And if we shift to outcomes and we look at outcomes, it's important that those are monitored, as opposed to just monitoring traditional outputs such as care quality scores only, or just activities. If you look at, well, what are the outcomes that an individual has wanted to achieve a good life, and then you adapt your monitoring procedures to see, well, how well is that working, and how well is the provider doing that, and that's one way to ensure that that contract delivers best value. Another example is alliance contracting. So alliance contracting is fairly new. There's not too many contracts of this that exist within social care in Scotland. There are a few more down south, but the premise behind an alliance contracting is it brings in the funder, it brings in providers, and it brings in those with lived experience and puts them all round a table, where as a collective they identify, well, what are the current services available, what is the need, and what are the resources available to meet that need, and importantly, where are any gaps in services? And as a collective, they all sit round with an equal voice and work out the best use of those resources, and they go and deliver services as a result. And the output, again, of that is outcomes for people are better achieved doing it in a collaborative way. And again, that helps to satisfy any best value criteria that needs to be applied in relation to public funding. We were acutely aware when we were discussing these alternatives that there can be various barriers to these. Sometimes it can be maybe it's within the department, or perhaps and more regularly it can be there could be a legal question brought out by a local authority legal team, or it could be from the procurement team who aren't too familiar or might not be familiar with some of these alternatives. So we co-opted Robin Fallis from McRoberts, and we decided that we would set out some Mythbusters to support providers and commissioners who are having those conversations, to give them a practical tool to use with good, clear, and information about what can and can't happen. And partly that's because the misconceptions include that procurement rules apply to all aspects of social care, where actually, in fact, they don't, and there are exceptions, and that procurement rules should always apply to grants, and of course that's not quite the case. So there were various different myths and myth busting that we put together, and we've produced those as a resource. And all these resources are available online. Um, through the CCPS Big Ideas website. They're available to everybody. I know not everybody in the audience today may work within social care, but we would encourage you all to go and have a look. We've put how-to guides out for collaborative commissioning, and we've also delivered and put up the Mythbuster. So again, I would encourage you all to have a look, as it just gives a slightly different take on procurement and commissioning within social care. One of the key themes that the group also discussed as we went through these intensive workshops was ethical commissioning. Ethical commissioning is incredibly important to procurement and also to the commissioning of social care services. The principles behind it are that it needs to be person-centred, that it has a human rights approach, that there is full involvement and meaningful involvement with people with lived experience, that fair work practices are at the heart of what we do, that there is measures in place to ensure there is high quality care, and importantly, that services are financially transparent, they are commercially viable, and there's shared risk. As often as we've found in certain circumstances, these principles aren't quite included within certain commissioning procurement practices within social care. So we were delighted at the tail end of last year, where the Scottish Government Procurement Directorate produced an SPPN notice, and again there's a link just on the screen which I'm sure we'll be able to share afterwards, which went out to all our local authority health and social care partnerships by way of a guidance note to explain that they were fully expecting HSCPs to include and have considered ethical commissioning in all of their work that they were doing in relation to social care services. And this is particularly important in relation to one of the main recommendations of the independent review of adult social care, which stated that there should be a national care service for Scotland. And this is work that Scottish Government are currently undertaking, and they've made it very clear that ethical commissioning is part of the preparatory work for the National Care Service. So I'd like to say thanks to everybody for listening. If you'd like to find out more about the work that CCPS does and the different programmes of work that we offer, please feel free to contact myself. My email address is there, or contact our programme manager, Catherine Garrett. We'd be delighted to hear from you. And we're also really pleased to see that we're also funded by Scottish Government, and they fund our commission procurement work. We're delighted to have that in place for this financial year as well. So at this point, I'd like to invite anyone who has any questions or maybe wants to find out anything else about our collaborative commissioning work or ethical commissioning or alternatives to drop a note in the chat, and I'll be happy to hear from you. So thanks, everyone. Afternoon, everyone. And thanks very much for taking the time to listen to what we've got to say. If you've got any questions about any of the topics that we discussed, just there, please feel free. I think on the right-hand side of your screens, you've got a Q&A function. If you'd like to use that to post any questions, I'll be more than happy to answer them as best as we can. So give a couple of seconds for some questions to start coming through, and then I will pick up on them. Okay, so first question that I can see is, are there specific award criteria you look for when awarding a social care contract? If so, what would these be? So CCPS, we don't let contracts. It would be the responsibility of the local authority health and social care partnership to do that. And the way in which they award a contract is by using the most economically advantageous tender criteria, which is a mix of quality and price, and they can have various different percentage splits or ratios for that. Sometimes it's 80% quality and 20% price. The emphasis is usually on quality, and a lesser emphasis on price, but price is still very important within the tender. And whilst CCPS's our view and our perspective of price, whilst we know that local authorities don't have an endless budget, making it competitive and making it price competitive can really, or can at times, prejudice outcomes that are able to be achieved. And I think this is that the shift that I was speaking about earlier in the presentation is quite prevalent, where we've had a number of commissioners who have approached CCPS and asked to see, well, how can we do things differently? How can we collaborate better? And we're delighted to receive those requests, and more often than not, we're able to support them and take them through that journey. So there's a few more questions coming in. So don't buyers have to deliver social care contracts? Why should we go through a really complicated business bidding process when they're just going to come to us anyway to ask us to deliver in our local area? I mean, that's an absolutely fair point. And again, if we go back to things I was discussing within the presentation, one of the effective kind of commissioning usages that you can go through is an alliance, and that is where you get all your providers, all your local providers around the table. You identify what services are being delivered, you look at what need is being achieved, what the unmet need is, and as a collective, you work out the best plan to see how to meet that need. And then it's a case of effectively working out who is best placed to deliver that around the locality. And that's why we think, or we would expect that a process like that would be better than a complicated bidding process, as the question states here, that you go through a complicated bidding process for a framework for 20 providers and the status quo remains. You think, but could we not have a better use of resources in that time? So I hope that answers or gives some clarity to that question. Question, are there enough social care providers in Scotland to actually deliver contracts, or will Scotland have to look elsewhere? Again, good question. In terms of availability and supply, yes, there are sufficient numbers of providers to deliver. Where social care does have its challenges really rests within recruitment and retention, and how social care as a career can be viewed, and these can create barriers to people entering social care. So whilst we have enough providers, it's actually the people within there, and organisations like CCPS, we work very closely with the Scottish Government and the Fair Work and Social Care Committee to look at how can we make social care more attractive, how can we get more people into our providers to come and work within social care. How do we make that more attractive as an offering? And you'll have seen perhaps through maybe since December last year, particularly within adult social care, was a focus on trying to address the hourly rate balance that's there. So there was raised from £9.50 to £10.02 in December, and then from 1st of April it raised again to £10.50. So that was really aimed at trying to tackle the lowest paid roles within social care as a way to boost the recruitment numbers and make it slightly more attractive to come in and work within the sector. Question, do you see a requirement for transparent type IR equivalent face masks in social care? So again, that's a very technical question. I'll do my best to answer that one. I think transparent face masks within social care is an absolute requirement. Particularly those that maybe have other types of sensory impairments, those that require or, or required to see more of the face, and that's really quite important to social care. But again, we are aware that Scottish Government through PPE hubs have made transparent face masks much more widely available than what they perhaps were, which is a positive. But yeah, I think it's a good, certainly during the pandemic times, it's a very it's a very important thing to have. There are a couple other questions that I've just seen pop through. And again, what procurement thresholds do your contracts normally fall under? Well, social care contracts are tendered in all shapes and sizes. Quite often, some of the misconceptions are that it's only very small contracts that are let within social care, and actually, it's probably more the opposite, where we have contracts that go from multi-year contracts for maybe 500,000 per year to multi-year frameworks that are for multi-million pound values, albeit um, there's no obligation on the buyer to get. There's no guarantees of work, but those types of contracts have a real high value attached to them because of the number of hours requiring to be delivered. I can see another question that's just popped through that's asking if the awarding authority is asking for 3 years accounts and you have only been trading for a year, how do you get around this problem? This can be quite a challenge, particularly so CCPS represents charities, and we can have what's called grassroots charities, and these are charities that have just set up and are new and are very unique to their service offering, and perhaps they've had to do that on the back of a tender coming out, and they don't have 3 years worth of accounts. So what the local authorities typically do there is they would ask for maybe some more additional kind of statements. So maybe some information on cash flow, balance sheet information at that point, if that's available. And if it's not, then they can always invite or we would always promote them to invite that particular provider in to discuss what maybe their business plans are, and see if that would satisfy. But again, part of CCPS's role within commission procurement is to challenge some of those kind of important, but they can be kind of blockers or challenges for organisations to get in to deliver actual contracts. And as I said, that can be difficult, particularly where we're in a scenario if charities had to be formed or a community groups had to get together to become more formal off the back of certain services being tendered. So there's not a short answer to that one, but it is a good question, and we would always encourage you to go and talk to the buyer to explain your situation and to see where we can get to. I'll just keep having a look at the sidebar there for some questions. The ethical commissioning piece is incredibly important, and CCPS were really delighted to hear the commitment from Scottish Government, who put this together and produced it as guidance to local authority health and social care partnerships. And this really is helping to shape the way as we work towards the new the National Care Service. So I'm still having a look at the question answer box. I think that's as I don't see any more questions that have come in. But I would like to say thanks very much for giving us the opportunity to talk to you today. Again, if you have any queries or questions, you've got our email addresses are on the slides, as is the link to the resources that we discussed. So yeah, thanks very much and enjoy the rest of your afternoon. Thank you.